Hello, welcome back to the third episode of EMI Professional Development Series by NTU. I'm Dr. Gina Wenjun Chen from National Zhongzheng University. Well, in the previous two episodes, we have already introduced the use of formulaic language and how it can facilitate the listening and speaking task in EMI classrooms. And in this episode, we're going to move on to the reading and writing task and see how formulaic language can continuously assist us when processing textual materials and producing quality passages. Just to refresh your memory, the formula expressions in the context of listening and speaking activities on campus, they often help us express attitude, certainties of ideas or arguments. The second types will be discourse organizers that help us organize ideas that's been spoken or expressed previously and connect to the upcoming ones. And the third type help us citing references or specify a range of time, area, or etc. And of course, we also have our classroom English, which actually help us mediate classroom tasks. As we EMI instructors and participating students gradually master the use of formulaic language, the accuracy and the fluency of our classroom lectures and discussions will improve, while students can gain much confidence when expressing their ideas. That's what we're looking for. Yet it's very important for us to engage in deliberate training, give them daily exercise to raise students' awareness of the capacity of formulaic expressions, identify their language functions, contextually process how they can signal the intended meaning from speeches by professional presenters or classroom instructors. Well, in other words, using us as models to help them internalize various expressions and their respective language functions. But most importantly, we need to have them practice to incorporate the expressions in their classroom participation. With the growing understanding of formulaic language, now we're moving on to reading and writing tasks in EMI classrooms, where students are required to read the materials in books or on test papers and on the whiteboard. Meanwhile, for graduate students, they strive to work on their thesis by reading tons of English papers written by international scholars while producing their masterpiece. One may wonder whether it's necessary to tackle students' academic reading strategies or proficiency here in Taiwan. Isn't reading the strongest forte when comparing to writing, listening, and speaking for Taiwanese students? After all, with reading, students can take all the time in the world to look up vocabulary, to break down sentences, and recompose them with grammatical analysis. Well, it seemed to be the case when we look at the reports from ETS. As a matter of fact, when EMI becomes a movement in our higher education, more and more people realize reading lengthy scientific papers or academic materials where CALPS is required and BICS can no longer suffice. On the top of that, text genre complicates and diversifies discourse, so problem emerges. 所以当学生需要读大量的学术的文章、科学性的素材，那这时候跟我们平常在阅读散文、小说这样的文体是非常不一样的。不管是用字遣词，还有组织架构来讲，学生就不太适应了。那这样情况之下，所有的文体，那还有文体的种类，更让这些以上的这些元素产生非常大的变化。那这样子问题就出现了。When taking reading comprehension tests, students only deal with short passages. Well, here by short, I'm talking about something that's less than a page. They have the patience and the time to slowly decode the text and answer those questions. Some students can even do that with their intuition and intellectual maturity instead of using any reading strategies. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the same way when students is required to process multiple papers or book chapters a week for one single course. Not to mention when reading loads piled up when taking several courses. Being able to get into the groove of reading flow and interact with the text become essential. When processing academic materials, readers need to understand how authors put their ideas together. In other words, writers follow and readers expect or predict a writing convention both sides share in the discourse community or in a certain discipline. Or rhetoric moves, textual relationships in English passages, as well as genre components. Well, the capacity and the power of formulaic language still remains in the reading and writing context, yet in a slightly different way. 所以在学术文章里面，很多时候用字遣词或者是文章的架构，学者们呢会用该领域常见的方式，或者是广泛被接受的模式来阐述自己的想法。在这样的情况之下，读者在阅读该领域的文章的时候，就应该能够预测到里面一些不管是专有名词的用法啦，或者是习惯的论述的方式跟逻辑。于是在读者跟作者互相之间已经建立的模式之下，该领域的学术文章就会有一些惯用的常见的方式写作方式，或者是用字遣词的方式。那这次呢，我们这惯用语块呢，在学术的文章的概念下，就称为文部 move， 并搭配文本关系来介绍如何训练学生的学术阅读跟写作。So how do we apply the idea of formulaic language to textual materials? We can start with this example. There are also various types of other moves. Well, in this case, for example, when we want to prepare readers for a topic or signal a new idea, this is how we use the type of move. The major aim of this trial to show whether the injections of paternal cells produce as a result significantly better than the control placebo effect over the no placebo effect in this condition has been achieved. 所以可以从我的断句呢，可以发现到前面这个划线的部分 the major aim of this trial， 那也可以把它 trial 呢换成其他的这个语汇，比如说 the major aim of this article， the major aim of this research， 然后再加上后半段这个补语呢，把这个语义呢把它做得更完整。The major aim of this trial， 把细节讲出来了以后，把这个结果讲出来了以后。has been achieved， 那把这个划线的部分呢前后一接起来呢，那这样就是一个非常完整的语境，非常完整的惯用语块。那这样子的文部呢，就是来告诉这个读者，这样子的结果呢，这样实验结果呢，它产生了什么样的一个效应？那在这样子的情况之下，用这个文部呢，就能够清楚的表达。Well, this short passage from the medical paper, we can see the expressions of the main aim for this trial, which indicates the directions of the discourse, explicitly inform the readers. The specific objective for these clinical experiments is to examine the outcomes of using paternal cells as the new treatment option, followed by the second half of the expression, has been achieved. Now let's take a look at another example. The expressions of the method used to collect data on patients with cervical and prostate cancer were identical with those reported in our retrospective study of colonic and rectal tumors. In this passage, well, we can see that the part that's got highlighted, the methods used to collect data on Just by this string of expression, we already know that there's passages likely to locate in the paper section patient and method. Why? How do we know that? Because we can look at the lexical item methods. 这边就有一个字，它透露出来这一句话，它可能是会出现在一篇 paper 里面的哪一个位置 ？The lexical items method, collect and data.These three items already provide clues. We suggest that the segments of this text is presenting the data collection information. So these types of moves incorporate explicit lexical items which signals explicitly the information contained. Just to make sure you're getting a hang of the idea of moves, let's try one more example.Can you tell where this segment is likely to locate in a paper or in a scientific report? Several features of the outbreak are of importance. First, there's no evidence after 412 years that the outbreak is waning. In Norway, And then secondly, the age distribution of cases is unusual by comparison with the recent national data. And then thirdly, throat swapping reveals very low carriage rate of something. So obviously, this could be located in a discussion section. Why? Because this passage signals that there's a coherence and unity exists between the various paragraphs led by first, secondly, and thirdly. And also they indicate a sequence in the relationship existing across all three paragraphs. On the left-hand side of the slide, we can see a common organization of a scientific paper, IMRD, respectively refers to introduction, method, result, and discussion sections. A lot of times, literature review will be part of the introduction section. Apparently, with different moves presenting different or related information or detail, writers can signal how they want the readers to interpret their intention and the messages and place each of them in different sections of a scientific paper. 所以作者们呢，就常常用一些字串，那些字串里面呢，有含词，然后呢，组合介系词或者是功能字，那整个组合起来呢，常常会变成该领域所惯用的文部。So just like listening and speaking, moves can also improve reading, writing, fluency, accuracy, shorten our thinking time, and sometimes give students more confidence, but most importantly, help them familiarize themselves with the norm. What do we mean by the norm? That would be the well-established structure or logic within the discourse community or discipline. How so? For example, here on this slide, we can see a very long sentence. Recent research has focused on athletes training with something, but whether this leads to a or an important progress or improvement is unclear. With this very long sentence, one can reduce the risk of bad word choice or grammar and make an argument which is highly comprehensible and acceptable between the readers and the writer in their discipline. A very famous scholar, John Swales, explicated a three-move schema to move readers or writers through an academic article. He suggested that when we start writing the scientific paper, we want to establish a territory. After that's done, we attempt to establish a niche. Once a niche is formed, we can propose an innovation to occupy the niche. Of course, to achieve these three stages, there are sub-moves to engage. With Swales' three-move schema as the basis, later Nugu presents a more detailed linear scheme for novice researchers to write or to interact with academic papers. His 11 moves under IMRD organization seems to be friendlier and more intuitive for us to follow. These 11 moves starts with presenting background information. The second one will be reviewing related research. That's the literature review section. And then you can present new research. And then moving on to method section, you'll start by describing data collection procedure, describing experimental procedure, followed by describing data analysis procedure. And then for the results section, you will indicate consistent observations and then indicate non-consistent observations. And then finally, when you reach a discussion section, you will highlight overall research outcomes, explain specific research outcomes, and then finally stating your research conclusions. When cruising along the 11 moves of paper writing, we need resources to suggest us proper expressions. The academic phrase bank on this slide is based on 100 postgraduate dissertations completed at the University of Manchester and later expanded with a lot of academic articles drawn from all different kinds of disciplines. These phrases are nuts and bolts of writing. When using these phrases, content words should be replaced to accommodate writers' needs. We can see all the phrases are categorized and listed according to the moves you want to make. If you wish to download all the phrases in a PDF and print it out, or explore more on how to navigate the phrase bank database website, these are the QR codes for your information. Other than the academic phrase bank, here we have another website which might make better sense and more straightforward for academic writing with the attempt to follow the 11 moves under the IMRD organization. Ref and Write is a recreation of the academic phrase bank we just introduced, yet presenting with a different interface similar to a search engine. You can type in the phrase you have in mind and see if better ones will pop up. You can even type in a couple of lexical items, meaning keywords. The system will present the expressions containing those words for your liking. Well, if you think it's too much trouble to get on the academic phrase bank site or Ref and Write, you can simply go ahead to use one of the search engines you preferred and type in a strings of expressions you have in mind, or sometimes even leave out the words you're uncertain of and see if it yields enough results to confirm your hypothesis. This verification step should become a habit for non-native English-speaking writers to accumulate their formulaic language collection. In this episode, we have really learned about the use of formulaic language in academic reading and writing tasks, how moves can help us consciously identify and establish the flow in academic reading and writing, and some useful resources such as the academic phrase bank, Ref and Write, or Google search engine can boost up our accuracy and fluency when processing school assignments and textual materials. In the next episode, we'll further explore moves with respect of textual relationship for academic writing. Here are the reference lists in case you wish to explore further. Thanks for watching.